This is Peter,
And this is Tom.
and you're listening to History Teachers Talking Podcasts. All right, this is Peter Zablocki and Thomas Fresca, and welcome back to our podcast. Tom, a cheery one today, I would say. A
Cheery one, yeah. A little bit of holiday cheer. We're really going to look at, with the holidays coming up, the gift crazes or the fads that took the country by storm. We're going to look at some older ones from like the turn of the century, but also like when like Black Friday started to become a thing, and really when the real craze started to hit in like the late 70s into the 80s and all the way to today. These like toys that when they hit the market, like people just went crazy for them, and parents went crazy to try to make sure their kids were happy, basically. And created this craze that you see even today. And hopefully you get nostalgic about people hearing about some of these. I know, when I worked in retail when I was a teenager and stuff, that living through some of these was kind of fun in its own way.
I miss about holidays and toys because ultimately that's what we're talking about, right? Like you said, we're going to run through some of the old stuff, but rush through the old stuff really and get into when it becomes like a holiday toy craze, which is really the 70s. But what I really miss is the good old holiday toy catalog. I mean, Amazon is trying to do that thing again. Like they send you a toy catalog,
Yeah,
but
Target
it's
sends
not
one out.
Target. It's not the same. Like I remember getting the Toys R Us one when I was a kid, and I would sit there and I would get myself like a little marker or a pen, and I would just mark off what I wanted, knowing that highly likely, I'm not gonna get
Yeah, not gonna get
90% of
it.
it.
So.
But it was just it was almost like looking through the pictures. And actually, when I was doing research for this, Sears came out with your first ever
Yeah,
quote
I remember that.
unquote toy catalog. And the Sears catalog, when that came out, they said that was like the most desired thing to own in December. Like it wasn't a toy, but they said that it became like a fad because every kid wanted that catalog because that catalog pretty much listed every possible toy that you could get that's good or you would want to have in the market. So the idea was that it wasn't a toy that was the thing you wanted the most. It was a Sears toy catalog. And I don't remember the Sears toy catalogs, but I do remember the Toys R Us ones. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
probably should have saved some. That would have been cool this day and age. But sometimes I see them online, and I'm like on eBay, and I'm like, but like, am I really going to spend $10 for Toys
yeah.
R
Like
Us
toy catalog. Yeah,
1994 catalog?
being able to
Yeah,
go through and want the toys that were in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas and Hanukkah is basically holiday season
Hol-
of gift giving.
Holiday season. Holiday season. Yes.
So let's you want to talk about some of the old ones, like some old popular toys, and just kind of run through some of them.
And a lot of the lists and all the research goes all the way back to, I guess we could find us going back turn of the century around 1919, right?
Yeah.
Right around that time is where you started seeing a lot of them for the first time. Well, there were toys before this, absolutely, but again, this is when I guess they were starting marketing more towards children, and you knew that too in the 1920s. It picks up when the consumer
Advertising.
based economy
Yeah.
advertising realize, we have children and they can be like a base, and parents will want to, they have disposable income, they want to buy things for their kids. So you get start seeing a lot of these things. But one of the first ones was that I saw that kind of freaked me out too, was the Raggedy Andy dolls in
Oh man,
1920.
so freaky,
Right?
so freaky.
Raggedy Andy and the brother Raggedy Andy, and cartoonist and illustrator Johnny Girl. He basically started publishing these stories, and then the dolls came out. So the same thing. It's what you're seeing later on when you get like Transformers, He-Man, Ninja Turtles, right? They have some sort of show on TV, or in this case, it was stories, and the kids
It was a
want
comic strip. Yeah, it was a comic strip
yeah,
basically.
and the kids want the toys, or they want something physical that connects them, with that. I remember being a kid too. You see the movie, go out and saw Batman, right, for the first time,
Yeah.
and then that Christmas was all 1989 was all Batman Christmas, Batman toys, Batman this, that, Batman that.
Batman
And that's what it
Christmas.
was. Yeah, that's what it was. Well, before that, a couple years before that, it was Transformers, but we'll get to those. But Raggedy Andy was one of those ones, and adults like snapped them up so the kids could have a matching Ann and Andy doll set. They were hard to find. They were not easy to get because again, these were all handmade by like,
Plus, it's 1920s. I mean,
yeah. So they weren't mass. They were produced on a large number. They weren't like mass produced by today's standards at all.
I'm looking at these things though, right? Like these Raggedy Andes. I guess I mean, it's in the 1920s, even. That's something you could just sew together. I mean, I guess I see the appeal. Again, it was a popular Christmas thing in the 20s. Another thing that was popular in the 20s, for as a kid's toy was a pogo stick.
Yeah.
Invented actually by a Russian immigrant. And they said they were like the most popular outdoor toy in the early 20s for the first few years. That was like the thing you wanted for Christmas from Santa. Have you ever actually used a pogo stick?
A couple of times. I know my sister used to have a couple of them. She was good at it. I never really my thing, but I could definitely, I'm sure when pogo sticks catch on, then broken arms and bruises and all the other stuff probably caught on
Yeah.
too. There's just no
Yeah.
way they could,
Doctors were excited.
yeah.
They're like, okay,
You
bring
see
him
some
on.
of those early pogo sticks, they didn't have like the protection. Like you look at ones now, they have like the coil is all like covered in plastic, it's all protected. The handles are different. This was really just like a stick with a spring in it and two like little like things to stand on. That's it. And you could see how
Yeah.
high you could go and go for it. So
Yeah.
it was
Those
kind
are
of
the
an action waiting to
20s.
happen. But a lot of the toys back then were like that. But yeah, it was a popular thing because why not? Like it's something that's different.
When I look at 1920s, one of the, just kind of looking at the series of always popular on Christmas time, is electric train sets.
Hmm.
And some of these things were dangerous. Like you could actually get electrocuted by the 1920s train sets.
They were a bit more expensive too. So like that was more of like if you had a train set during that time. I know a lot of research was saying that they were more like rich families would have that. So we almost like a stat, you have that going underneath your tree or down or something like that. Those Lionel train sets were expensive. It cost about an average month's salary during that time.
Yep. And then, when you move over to the 30s, every time I think of this, I think of like not just the Great Depression, but really World War II and scrap drives. And that's the radio flyer
Hmm.
wagon,
Which is
right?
still around today. It's still
Still
around. I
around
think that,
today. Yep.
yeah, the company and everything. Well, I just know that they're still around today. They started manufacturing. The company changed its name to Radio Steel Manufacturing in the 1930s,
Yep.
and then they were basically making 1,500 wagons a day at one point to make sure they could keep up with the crazies. Every kid had one of these wagons, and they would just throw their toys in a wagon, throw rocks in a wagon, and just wheel it around. Like that was just a big deal, Then put their little brother or sister in the wagon, pull them around and stuff like that. Go down a hill.
Yeah.
Like it was more than just a wagon. They used it for pretty much like anything they could think of, and it could be it was a car, it was an airplane to them. It was kind of like it was one of those toys that children could use their imagination with a bit more with these radio flyers and stuff like that. So it was
But it's kind
definitely
of,
used today
yeah,
too.
yeah. And this kind of brings me to the next one. Also in the 30s, pedal cars. I know, like, you still have it in your parents' garage. Don't you still have your Knight Rider pedal car?
I have the old Knight Rider kit. It still works too, I believe. I think we put
Oh,
batteries in it a
man.
couple years ago just to see, and it still comes on. The light goes back and forth. But yeah, it was old school
Dude, that's a
pedal car,
classic.
old school
But
pedal
in
car.
1930s, yeah, 1930, pedal cars. That was like, if you were rich, like that was the ultimate
Yeah.
Christmas gift that you wanted. You wanted the pedal cars. When I look into 1940s, there are a lot of toys actually for boys specifically that were kind of around Christmas time that were really advertised were Dick Tracy toys, specifically like the Dick Tracy Detective Kit. So Dick Tracy's been around since 1931, and by 44 it became really popular because it translated from just a comic strip to a radio show.
It's that merchandising. So they're hearing it on the radio, right? They're maybe reading it in the comic strips before that, and now they can actually play it and be it. And it's that tie-in, and that's where you're going to see. This is going to get bigger and bigger, bigger. That's going to be a theme that you can definitely just look at. It's just like a history of like marketing podcast or course. That's what you'd be looking at. You'd be seeing this evolution of see, it's a show, it's something out there, and then they want that physical representation of it.
Yeah.
To hold that Dick Tracy decoder ring in your hand that they talk about that he used on the radio show is a big deal.
You know what's crazy though? Like when I think of Dick Tracy, I think of like even when I remember watching because eventually it was a cartoon in the 50s, right? But the fact that he would like talk to his watch, you were like, "Whoa, this is so cool!" And like I think of
Yeah,
what we have now, like
yeah.
it is surreal, and like how far we've come as a society that like Dick Tracy's stuff that was appealing to a child is now just common technology. It's nothing special. Like here you go.
That's
It's
really
sad.
nothing special. Yeah,
Really nothing special whatsoever. It's kind of sad. 1950s, Viewmasters became kind of big in around Christmas season in 1950s, specifically early 50s. It was
really.
originally designed to be a way to look at scenic photography, right, from around the world. But then it became super popular, and then you started getting discs that started showing images from Disney movies. And that's when it became a big deal in the early 50s. When you got this Viewmaster and you could like put this like it was like a spinny disc that had a bunch of little
Yeah, you
pictures in it.
click it, push it to
And you
level down. Yeah.
Exactly. And that was the jam. But I think in 1952 is when you start to get into one of the first like real, toy crazes against the
Toy. That's yeah. One of the biggest ones was the first toy to actually have a actual commercial, which
Yep.
was Mr. Potato Head. And when it was first introduced, I don't know if people know this, it didn't have a body. There was no body included. Nowadays, you have it, the backside opens up, right? And you can put in
Yeah.
all the heads and pieces in that. And they make so many different versions now. They have like the Superman one. They have every movie that comes out, there's like a Mr. Potato Head version. I'm sure there's an Avatar one coming out. But it was one of the first true toy frenzies, but you would use an actual potato, and it just came with its own wacky face components, basically. And made over $4 million in sales its first few months after it was launched. in 52. And again, these are not necessarily just holiday crazes yet. We'll get to those. The ones that take off just in like at the holiday season. These are
Yeah,
just
around
like
December. Yeah.
kind of just like laying down the laying down the groundwork for that to happen. That there are companies out there now that are just going to make toys, and these toys are going to be connected with something that is part of pop culture at that time.
Yep. This one's also I kind of want to touch upon 1953 because it's a cool story. Matchbox cars, they're
Hmm.
still super popular today. I mean, I don't really see kids that are like, "Yo, it's Christmas. I really want a Matchbox toy," but at some point it was, and specifically in the early 50s. And the way it was invented was because of a rule at school. Jack Odell's daughter, he's the guy that invented the idea of Matchbox car, was only allowed to bring toys to school that could fit inside a matchbox. That was the school rule. So Odell winds up producing the little die-cast car and sends her to school with him. And all of a sudden, like all these kids are like, "This is awesome!" And it basically launched as a company. Odell launched it into a company, the Matchbox car company, in 1953, and that was the biggest seller of the year. Was these Matchbox cars, the most popular toy?
They were really detailed too for what they were, and they spawned
Yeah.
off a lot of other companies like Mattel. Eventually, will make Hot Wheels. That's a whole other thing.
I used to have so many of them. I don't even know where they are, but that was go-to gifts. Now they're like what, $3 probably. It's like
Yeah,
a
I guess like some of them are probably more than that if it's like a something fancier, like a well-known car, like a tie into
yeah.
like a movie or something.
They've been coming out with a lot of those like tie-in movie ones. I just saw like a Jeep for the Terminator. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
And then
there's
let's
a lot
finish the
of
50s with the thing that probably still is, and it was at least for decades to come. For like I said, it might still be for a lot of people this ultimate gift, and that is the Barbie.
yep.
Was first introduced in 1959, and 300,000 Barbies were sold just in 1959. I mean, this was the biggest 1959 Christmas gift. If you were a little girl, you wanted a Barbie. And I, again, to this day, you could buy Barbies that are all kinds of special editions. I mean, I'm sure there's people that still want Barbies for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, this coming out. They coming out with a Barbie movie. I think they're coming out with a Barbie movie. I mean, if you want to talk Americana, Barbie's Americana. Whether good or bad, I know a lot of people talk about unrealistic body types that for girls, and a lot of like the mock Barbie too in Ken, but it's part of Americana. This Barbie doll. Again, if you have some of ones from the 50s, remember my mom talking about, oh, I thought she had like the first ever Barbie dolls. And like, she's like, oh, I should have kept those. I'm like, yeah, you should have kept those.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I should have kept those.
well,
That's crazy. Oh, the next gift. Now we're in the '60s. Now, to this day, I think it's still. I mean, it definitely still is a very popular Christmas gift. Not like crazy, like oh, I need it, but I think of everything I have downstairs that I just bought gifts for people, and there's at least 4 sets of this, and that's Legos.
Legos, yeah.
Um, so Legos became extremely popular in the early '60s. And I mean, the toy craze around, I specifically remember being a child and receiving Lego sets for Christmas. Like, that was the thing I looked forward to because I knew I was going to get like a bigger Lego set as opposed to like a small one. Like, I knew Christmas time's coming. I'm going to get a bigger Lego set. I mean, those things to this day.
Yeah, well, especially with the licensing too, they can have a Star Wars Legos and
Yeah.
superhero Legos, and I even saw they have like guitars that you make a guitar. They got guitars. They have the tree from Karate Kid. Like it's just anything that can be licensed, that can be marketed. Here's a Lego version of it, right?
Yeah.
So
I have
they
a
have
I have a
those.
typewriter. I have a Lego typewriter my wife bought me. I haven't put it together yet, but that's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
good luck with that. It's probably 3,000 pieces. They're all black. Have fun.
Yeah, seriously.
But
We're almost there. We're almost on the
well,
'70s,
I
guys.
one, right, one in that's one. This one was kind of the first toys that were made in the late, just for the Christmas rush, and that was the one that I'm sure a lot of people had, the Easy Bake Oven. I know my
Yep.
sister had one. It was a tiny light bulb that could kind of cook brownies. I remember her making it once because she was so excited and made it, and everyone in the house got sick. I don't think we like cooked and cooked the brownie batter quite right, but I remember everyone getting sick in the house
That's
because
funny.
of the Easy Bake Oven. That was it. But yeah, he's still making ones out. You see the pictures of the early Easy Bake Ovens; they look like a real oven, like the metal and that.
They
The ones
do.
now are a little bit different, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
different.
Well, the first one was built in '63.
Yeah,
You're right. Yeah, it was designed just for like it was a toy craze for Christmas.
right before Christmas, it was like
Yeah.
designed.
And then another one that was kind of designed around Christmas time, but I mean, I remember a much smaller version of it was the GI Joe action figures. These are the bigger, full size ones.
Compliment Barbie. Like these were the boys' version of Barbie. These were
Yep.
the larger ones. Yeah,
I remember the small ones in like the '80s. Like that was my
yeah.
jam.
That's the whole thing. Those were made because of the Star Wars toys, the
Yep.
success of Star Wars toys, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. All right. Troll dolls in the '60s, also a big craze. That
Yeah,
was
they
like a
made a
big.
comeback. I remember them making a comeback in the '90s, right, or the late early
They
'90s. I feel
did.
like trolls were
Yeah,
big,
they did.
right? They were one of the big ones in the mid '60s, and you had Hot Wheels and stuff like that we talked about before. Were also becoming big. I guess we shoot to the '70s now
Yeah,
a
yeah. I
little
was gonna
bit.
just do one '70s one, and then we're gonna get into these
Then,
hardcore
well,
Christmas
let's
ones.
yeah.
Which one do you think I'm gonna go with? Because this is ridiculous. We need to talk about this. What do you think?
I
This
think I know which one
box,
you're talking about.
this box contains one genuine,
Yeah.
pedigreed
Pet Rock.
pet rock.
Hey, but this is the Pet Rock is the ultimate capitalism item. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how am I going to make money? Let me take the box. Let me say this is a pet rock. And I remember like not getting it when I was a kid. Like, not getting one physically. I didn't want one, but also like, why would you want that? I knew people always wanted like a pet rock, and I was like, why? Like, it doesn't make any
What do you mean?
sense.
Why?
I
That
just
was the catchphrase was you want it because it doesn't need any care.
yeah,
Like
but it
it's the
just didn't
best
make it.
pet.
But people are actually buying pet rocks. Like I don't know. It was one of those things I just couldn't register in my like like 6 7 year old mind. And even now it's like, why would you do that? But hey, you know what? It's capitalism. You're making money. They made money.
Yeah.
They made more than they sold more than 1 million units in 1975
Isn't that insane?
at, at almost $4 a pop.
Yeah, it was
So
3.95 for a rock. I
they sold
can't.
they sold over 1 million of them.
I can't. I can't. All right, so now we're in the '70s. We're getting close to stuff.
All right, well,
'77. Let's get
all right.
into
So
the real toy
this is the
craze.
first, the first real toy craze, right? Which was basically, like we said, in 1977, and it was what basically happened. What else came out in '77 was the movie that changed Peter's life in every way possible. And even though
Funny.
you weren't alive yet, right? But that was Star Wars. Okay, so Star Wars comes out. It's a big hit. No one really, and obviously people have heard the stories. The movie comes out. It's a big hit. People didn't really realize how big of a hit the movie was going to be. George Lucas kind of took a gamble, right? Took less money, but said he wants the money from the merchandise, which was something that didn't really happen a lot before Star Wars. Like there wasn't really movies that released toys with it. I think there was a couple of James Bond movies, right? That they
Yep.
started trying to make toys for, but they kind of caught on, but not really. You had like Lost in Space, but you didn't really have these like big blockbuster movies that then had toys that combined with them. But that all changes after Star Wars. Particularly, you had these movies that were being made, but what happened was the toys were not ready to come out yet, and it was right before Christmas. You know
Oh
what I
well,
mean?
this
Like,
so all right. So when you talk about Star Wars, we actually have to mention the fact that there actually wasn't enough
yeah, like
Star
I
Wars
said,
toys
there
for
wasn't there
sale.
wasn't enough to Star Wars toys. They didn't even have them, and they knew that, and there was no way to get the production made in time. So what they did was something that we kind of talked about earlier. They put a catalog out, and what you would do is you would pay for the toys now, and you were promised you would get them later. And that
Yep.
was kind of like the thing. It didn't really catch on, believe it or not, much because kids would open up on Christmas Day would be this little piece of paper that said, "Oh, look, you're going to get Darth Vader." I think it was 7 or 8. I mean, Star Wars people are going to come after us for this for not knowing the exact number, but it was a certain number of them that you got. And it was the main characters, but you had to wait. I don't think they would be. They got them until like February.
Yeah, it was
You
like a
were going to wait.
cardboard. It was like a cardboard, like
Cardboard
almost like a
cutout,
board. Yeah.
and then they would eventually be mailed to you. I think they'd be mailed to you once the figures were made because they just literally did not think this movie was going to be popular enough. Like, they did make some of the toys, and those were sold out right away. But now, when the Christmas crave came in, and Kenner was a toy company, they were like, we need to. If we lose Christmas, we lose the whole year. Like that was that's how they made their money. So they had to have something, and they put this together. But they were obviously ready for it years later when Empire Strikes Back comes out. They had all the toys ready. It was like a huge success, a huge hit. But the main things with those toys, like we talked about a little bit earlier, was they made them 3.25 inches, which was really becomes a new standard action figure size. That's what GI Joe will also do. Will copy that size because that's where they could make them that size. They could go into like their X-wings and Millennium Falcons and stuff like that. But to say that it was like a craze, like you literally could not find them. And so parents just were like, well, we need to find, I need to get this toy for my kid. But literally the toys did not physically exist. So they
I
just
mean,
said,
look at
well,
it. Look at it. Look at
you're,
us. I mean,
you're
with the
going to get
Star
them.
Wars, when the Star Wars was released or when the prequels came out, I remember trying to go get the. I mean, I was a grown up, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get the toys. Gotta get the toys. And I would like run to the store. I literally remember leaving like my classes in college to go to Toys R Us. I probably shouldn't be admitting this to try to get like the Anakin Skywalker toy because I'm like, it's probably gonna be worth a lot of money. I'm gonna get it, and you know what? Like I have it, but like it's really not worth a lot of money now. Like
No,
I
no,
look
no.
at,
They
yeah, I bought
didn't
it
really,
probably for like $5. It's worth like 10 now. And, this was 20 years
maybe,
ago,
yeah.
but But to me, it was, it was still that from childhood, this idea of like, well, if I don't get it, they're not going to have them. And for the, actually, it was very hard to get the Star Wars toys. But I mean, even when the new ones came out, the new trilogy came out, like we were grown men, Tom, right? And we were like, hey, dude, did you get the Ray? I got a couple. I got one for you too. Like, I remember
Yeah,
like
the
you
Ray
would
was,
go,
I remember that the Ray because they didn't they just well that was the whole like they just didn't make a lot of the female toys and they also didn't want to like show the fact that she was going to have a lightsaber or something, so it was like a
yeah,
weird thing. So yeah, it was
yeah,
like hard to
yeah,
find, and then you remember seeing the prices, and then it just obviously dropped out because now I'm sure you can get them anywhere. But
yeah. But I mean, people still do it. It's still a thing of running because of this idea, and especially
oh yeah,
since the newest trilogy, the Star Wars, the latest, I should say, Star Wars trilogy, also came out around the holidays. So it was the same thing. It's like go, 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 and get. They do this on purpose. They know what they're doing. But
yes, well
you-
it's marketing. They've learned this from like those who there's that saying those who not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. In this case, they're repeating it because it was profitable.
yeah,
They're doing this because it's profitable.
you know what gets me though? How come Indiana Jones toys there was no such thing like that Star Wars had? You know what I mean? Like you would think it was also a George Lucas
I,
property.
Yeah, well, they made toys, but but I guess it's more that Star Wars has that so many characters, that cast of characters. It's not just and they have like those like crazy scenes in the movie. You can actually buy
Hmm.
the AT-AT walker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
That actually walked. You know what I mean? You could have like you could reenact the battles, so you can kind of reenact the movie. What are you going to do? You don't need if Indiana Jones. You get Indiana Jones and you get a rock. You can act out the movie. You know what
yeah.
I mean? So it's a little bit different than that.
You could get a pet rock. You could get a pet rock.
There you go. Get a pet rock and get Indiana Jones. Now you're all set. That's all you
That
need.
was that.
You know what I mean? The other one, you need Darth Vader. You need Stormtroopers. Score's another Stormtrooper. Stuff like that. So
So
I guess that that
let's
works.
finish up the 70s. I feel like finishing up the 70s was something that is still I mean obviously not this exact thing, but it's still a very popular Christmas present to this very day, as there's people out there right now perhaps that are listening to this podcast that are looking to get their kids or themselves a PS5, which has been like the one item. It's been like ridiculous for the past 2 years. I mean, I literally got mine last year for my kids for Christmas. I had to meet some guy at a police station, like, open his trunk. It's because you're still trying to get that video game
Yeah,
system,
sure.
that
That's a
elusive video game
little
system.
odd there, Pete. A little odd.
Well, that's why I said let's meet at a police station. But Atari. I mean, 1979. This came out in 75. But it really took off in the late 70s. And by 1979, it was the hottest toy you could get around Christmas time. It was the Atari video computer system. And I love this because whenever you look at the art on those cartridges, it's like
Oh
so
yeah,
cool. It's like, oh, it's gonna be such a
yeah.
cool game. And
And
then
then
you
you
put it
actually,
in and it's like, oh,
well,
Pong.
it kind of looks like what it was. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
kind of looks like ET or whatever it was, right? That whole thing.
Just hey, video game
If you caught
systems.
on, that was the beginning of it, and it kind of dies out. That's something I guess our future podcast. We haven't said that in a
Yeah.
while of how the video game craze really took off and kind of died too. Like the Atari
Yeah.
helped start it, but also helped killed it.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast until Nintendo comes, which will be a little bit later on the list.
Yeah. Which we're getting there. Yeah. So 82. So this is the awesome year of 1982. And I only said that because that's the
Yes,
year we were born in. But
maybe too. Why
um
not?
why not? So BMX bikes, it's actually, this is correlated to the fact that they were featured so heavily in ET, which was a super, super popular movie in 1982. And all of a sudden, kids around country, like the whole country, they just wanted to have BMX bikes. Like you didn't
Yeah,
want your dad's old bike. You wanted a BMX bike. Like you were hoping under that tree, or like as you're there, that your dad would come out of the garage and be like, here's your BMX bike, with a nice big bow on it. I mean, I had a BMX bike. I had a GT Performer in like the late 80s, early 90s, and that thing was like the hottest thing around. You know how I know it was the hottest thing around, Tom? Someone stole it from our garage. That's how I knew it was the hottest thing around. Someone
there you go.
stole
They
my
wanted it.
BMX,
They were
bro.
jealous of you.
Yeah, it's not okay.
I'm gonna
You
come.
know, I
I'm gonna come and
lo-
steal your PS5 later too. You know what
it
I mean?
was it was a lot of mowing lawns to get that BMX bike. That's the first thing that's ever been stolen from me. I mean, I was a kid. I was like, oh my gosh. And my dad's like, listen, we can't afford to buy another one. And I was like, it's okay. But clearly it's not, because here I am 30 years later, still talking about it. All right, let's get to the next one,
It's
1983.
still.
This is a biggie where
Well, this is the one
parents were
everyone's
fighting
gonna
each other.
know him.
Yeah.
Everyone's this is like you still see commercials with it like they always show this toy during the toy crazes and stuff like that, people flipping out, and that was the Cabbage Patch dolls. These things were like super wanted. What was that movie that came out a couple years just recently? Was it 8-Bit Christmas or something like
Hmm.
that, right, with Neil Patrick Harris? And then isn't that like
Great
the what the
movie.
girl wants? He wants the
Yeah.
Nintendo, the girl wants the Cabbage Patch
Cabbage Patch.
doll
Yeah.
or something. This is not Cabbage Patch doll. This was the must have. It was first toy on the list, all these lists, they say it actually resulted in fights breaking out. You can see these videos of people like fighting for them on the shelves because it wasn't just wanted a Cabbage Patch Kid. You needed to have like a specific type. Like I want the Cabbage Patch Kid with red hair. I want the Cabbage Patch Kid with blue eyes and stuff like that. So they're fighting for these because you got the doll and I guess they got the like a birth certificate, whatever it was. Like said, this is the kid. You write the kid's name. So there's a lot of things really played. It was just like a must have for parents. And it was just, they just did not make enough of them that came out. So it was the same thing. Like a lot of parents just said, listen, you'll get one, but you're not going to get one until like February, like when
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
more like in stock and stuff like that.
No,
Because they
they
just,
said that like there was actual riots in
yeah,
stores
there were
that broke
riots.
out.
Oh yeah, yeah. All the videos, they always show around time. They always do like recap. Oh, let's look like the toys that caused the biggest frenzy. And the Cabbage Patch Kids, I guess, was a big frenzy. Again, I guess we're speaking, you and I were one, so we weren't
Yeah.
very old
But
at the
they're still
time.
popular when
And
we were
also,
growing
and
up
also
though.
we were boys, and just I'm not boy whole girl thing, but wasn't really a toy back in the '80s. Toys were much more gender specific than they were today, and yeah, so it wasn't a big. I remember my sister had even Couch Patch Kids like later on and stuff, Couch
Yeah.
Patch Kids toys and stuff like that. But
Yeah, my wife still remembers hers. Like she's like, "Oh, I still have that." And
yeah, I
sometimes
think
she's like, we like see like our son took his school picture this year. I was like, "Wow, he looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid." Like you just people just know what that's about.
yeah,
However,
the
for
cheeks and stuff like
us,
that.
yeah, the cheeks and the freckles.
Oh, for us it was the next year, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. I'll let you
Well,
have it.
again, this was Transformers, okay, which Toys R Us has actually come out and said it was the greatest selling toy franchise of all time. Right, was the Transformers, and also creates a huge, huge craze during this time. They produced a base of robots, right? Could turn into cars, planes, all those other things, even cassette tapes. And the fever just took over, and it became a really popular toy. Also, right around Christmas time that year, because actually they released some extra ones. Like there was like the next wave of Transformers came out. And again, people just you couldn't get enough of them because what it was they like, oh, I have Optimus Prime, but now I need Megatron, or I want the jet, or I want the cassette player. So it was like you had to find a specific one. So they were very smart about that. It was you needed the whole set. That was one of the first ones that you had a whole you have to collect, you have to get all of them so they can have these like battles and stuff like that. And it was just a heavily sought after Christmas one. You didn't have riots. I'm sure you might have had some individual
Yeah.
ones. It wasn't quite the craze like some of the other ones that are going to pop up later, like the Couch Patch Dolls, but it was definitely like a popular one. And I remember again for that Christmas I was too young, but I remember getting Transformers later on, and it was still like like one of my greatest Christmas memories ever, opening up and getting Optimus Prime and Nintendo the same year. I think it was like Christmas '88 or whatever it was. I remember my mom has like a picture of it somewhere, so it's just like flipping out because it was like
Did you see they just came out with Optimus Prime Lego set? That's like huge for adults, like 18 and plus, but
yes, I did see that. I did see that. Yes,
it's
well,
like $300.
I got a weird look from my wife when I ordered it. And it came in the mail the other day. The Optimus Prime Christmas edition, which is just basically Optimus Prime with a candy cane blaster,
No, that's
and
cool.
his trailer is painted all Christmas colors. The kids love it. Wife
Yeah,
was not so crazy when I put it
that's
underneath the Christmas tree as like by the train set, but
that's cool. That's cool. That's cool though.
it was it was what it was. We're just gonna move
This
on now.
this next one, just gonna move on until unless your wife listens to this, then you'll be in trouble again. 1985, the Teddy Ruxpin, right? Am I saying that right? I
Gotcha.
think so.
Well, you had Care Bears. You had Care Bears.
Oh, how did I skip
It was
Care Bears?
you can't skip Care Bears. Well, we'll get into the Bear craze. So 85 and 86, right?
Hmm.
85 was a Care Bears. Again, it was number one TV show at the time. Number one TV show of the 80s during that one year. These Care Bears, they basically was what bears with like things on their stomach, right? Like
Hmm.
whatever it was, Sleepy Bear, Champ Bear, and stuff like that. And they became really, they had a movie. Their movie came out in 85. So again, you're seeing that tie-in with a movie or other merchandise. And they're just these like plush bears, and it was on pretty much the top of every Christmas wish list. Not just in the United States, they started tracking it by this point, and they found out this was actually something that was worldwide. That kids around the world, the number one asked for gift that year, worldwide, was a Care Bear,
Yeah.
which was crazy to think about. Again, you're seeing this, that how like this global influence now you're seeing on things. It's not just what's going on in the United States; it's worldwide at this point. And then '86 is when Teddy Ruxpin come out. Did you ever have a Teddy Ruxpin? I did not have one. I knew kids who had one.
I
I had no
didn't,
real.
but they said this was such a hot toy. It actually came out in '85, but you couldn't get it. It was sold out for Christmas. So you were like
Yeah. So
the
86 is
hero
really what it
parent.
was.
So '86
Yeah.
became the Christmas toy. A year later, it was still the top Christmas toy because
Yeah.
from the year prior, people just couldn't get it.
It was
I think
basically a
that's great.
tape recorder. It was basically a tape recorder inside of a teddy bear, right? But like
Yep.
the eyes would move and the mouth would move, and he would read you stories and stuff. I think there was a cartoon too. I want to say there probably was a cartoon or
Oh,
something like that with it,
probably.
but it was synchronized. It was like a big thing. Like again, by the technology of today, this is nothing. But for the in 1986, this was like, oh my god, if they can do this, they can do anything. You know, like
I know it's
what happened just a
nuts.
couple of weeks ago. Didn't they talk about scientists just successfully did some form of nuclear fusion, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure you
did.
saw
That
that,
was all over the
right?
news.
I
Yeah.
did it for the first time ever. You know, it's like the beginning. But for if you were a kid in '86 and you saw a Teddy Ruxpin, you're like, oh my god, this thing is alive. Like it's like changing lives. You know, so
Uh,
it was kind of similar to that. Like it was just that
that's
to talk
funny.
to and look at you and everything like that. It's crazy.
87, and again, we don't have to. We could skip some years, but like we'll talk about the biggest ones. 87, Nintendo came out, and that was like
I thought that was eight.
revolutionized.
I thought that was
It was
'88
87,
Nintendo.
wasn't it?
I got
I thought it
'88.
was. I got
'87.
87. Oh
This one.
snap! We got to
This
go to
one.
our fact checker. We don't have a fact checker. All right, I'm pretty sure it's 87, dude. But
It's just my '87 is fine.
all
'87,
right,
'88.
all right,
And so it's like
um,
I got it. I got it in '88. I know
all
for a
right.
fact that I got it in '88 because I have the picture that actually says Christmas '88, and there I am with my Nintendo. Right, and I was like super excited for that because it wasn't even something I even thought we were going to get, and it just like was there, you know. And it
Crazy.
was just like it came out like a decade after the Atari, pretty much, and like it's saved the video game system because you would get it, and it was we're getting worldwide, and you get Super Mario Bros. And you got Duck Hunt, so you got two games in one, right? And you
Yep.
got like the controllers and the blaster, and it was just like the best thing. It became a household name. And like Nintendo, I remember a couple of years, it was the last year, the year before, I got the Switch for my son. If I find he's old enough to get him the Nintendo Switch, and that's this year. He's all he wants for Christmas is just video games. I guess
Yep.
she's like, I don't care what video game, Dad. Just give me some. I just want video games.
That's
Like,
awesome. Well, we talk
oh,
about video
okay.
games. So, like, see, like Nintendo for me, I don't know. I never had a Nintendo, right? But I did have the 1989 hottest toy in the summer. I mean, summer and Christmas time, and that's the Game Boy. My
I never had a
parents
Game Boy.
did. You never had a Game Boy? Oh, see, I never had a Nintendo, but I had a Game Boy. Maybe because my
I
parents just
never.
didn't want me to take up the TV. It was like go play in a
I
corner.
never wanted one.
But I still have pictures of like like the good old 10-year-old me playing Game Boy. It released in '89. It was bundled with probably one of the most famous puzzle games of all time called Tetris.
Well, that was
Uh,
part of it too. Was that fact that they got
yeah, that's
Tetris?
what basically sold the Game Boy
Yeah.
because it came with Tetris. It sold 35 million units just in 1989. So I had my Game Boy. I had my little Game Boy carrying case. Like that was the jam. It's kind of how we rolled.
In '89,
Uh,
it was the biggest toy. It was the biggest toy in '89. It came nostalgic. I know my wife found her old one, didn't even work,
I know we tried
and
to make it work. Remember, I was like, "Come
you,
on, we can
you
make this
couldn't get it to
work."
work. Someone bought it for like $80. Like she just was like, "Does someone want this?" The guy's like, "I'll give you $80 for it." She's like, "It doesn't work." He's like, "I don't care." Like it's like
That'd be too
sure,
funny.
like that's probably
You
what
know, I
more
should
than it cost like back then. But yeah,
seriously. I should tell my wife that's what I want for Christmas this year. I want the original. Like I gave mine away to like one of my nephews somewhere down the line when I was I was a teenager. I'm like, I don't need this.
yeah. I, mean,
You
so
know,
I
I
got
have
this.
Game
Yeah,
Boy
and then,
Advance now. I have Game Boy Advance. I have
yeah.
PSP. Like dang it, should have kept the Game Boy. All
So,
right, so we don't jump through every year, but I mean the next year's kind of a known one, right? I
yeah,
don't have
Ninja.
to go every year, but go Ninja
No,
Turtles.
but
Go.
we'll do this one. Yeah, this one's kind of like getting close to the heart, right? It's basically the big one was Ninja Turtles. Yeah, that was, and I remember that year I got I can't believe I'm actually remembering what I got these years, but I got the myself and all my cousins, we all got the Ninja Turtle the party van. That was like the big thing. I remember again, it was what you talked about before, that catalog, Pete. We looked in the Sears catalog and it was there. I remember my grandma trying to be like, slick about it, and she's ordering it on the phone. You just have to call in. Remember, imagine that you call the number in the
Yeah,
catalog, like I'm gonna order number A752, the Ninja Turtle party van. Give me three of them. You know, what I mean, that's what you would do. But it was huge, and people they obviously Ninja Turtles, and I'm not going to get into details of it, but they were actually flying off the shelves faster than people could supply them. Like they actually didn't have enough of them in toy stores because they were selling out that fast. Again, because you had the comic books first, but then the big thing was the cartoon. When that cartoon
yeah.
came out, and then people were trying to like do the rest with the kids want the toys. that they
Yeah.
wanted. It was the four turtles, and you had the Master Splinter, and then everything else, and people wanted them. You couldn't find them. You couldn't find that one they wanted. Like, oh, I wanted Leonardo, you want Donatello. It was hard to get all of them. Anybody had to get the whole set because you can't have Ninja Turtles if you don't have all of them.
Yeah. Also in the 90s, a big one, especially for younger kids, was Barney. When Barney came out in 1992, um, they said that, it just took the world by storm, especially for the little kids. Everyone's like, I love you. Like, I remember
Yeah.
making fun of that, and the merchandise sold like crazy, especially that
Oh
first
yeah.
year, like early 90s.
It was a cash cow. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. But also, this was something that I always wanted, and I remember like my parents saying, "Why you don't need this?" And I only really wanted it because Kevin McAllister had it, and that was the 1993 Talk Boy, um, which
It's
basically
basically
I
a
feel
tape
like the whole
recorder
movie was an ad for the Talk Boy.
for that one. Yeah,
Yeah, right? Home Alone 2.
a Home
Um,
Alone. Yeah.
all it is, it's basically you pop the tape in it, it record. It's a recorder. It's a voice recorder that slows down your voice, so it alters your voice. That's ultimately what it was. Um,
But it
I
was
do
super
want to.
popular. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Super Bob? I want to skip a little bit to 95 Beanie Babies, which apparently right now they're not really worth as much as people think they
Well,
should be
some
worth.
were at the time. Some they were saying this one's going to be worth, this one's going to be worth. But yeah, but Beanie Babies, I remember with being big. My sister having a lot of them. Um, Basically, the first ones were like a stuffed lamb and stuff like that called Lovey that got discontinued, and then they told Anchor because the toy were retired, and that's what was driving up demand. So people were buying them because they're only going to make them for so long, and then just go up. And they started making Beanie Babies for everything. I remember having like the Yankee Beanie Babies, like the whole team. Like here's a Tito
Yeah.
Martinez Beanie Baby here, and it was that sort of stuff. And you started seeing them like everywhere, and the values did start to go up, but then of course, like anything else, it kind of like that bubble kind of burst because then there's so many being produced, and then people kind of realize, why am I going to spend thousands of dollars for a little teddy bear? This one's purple, this one's red. Like what's going on? But
Yeah.
there are some that are still valuable today. There are a bunch that are valuable. I know.
Well, you talk about valuable. The next thing that became
Well,
so
this is
big
a
in the
craze.
90s that it
This
literally
is
brought back like Cabbage Patch Kids style. Like people were fighting in the
fighting. Yes,
stores, fighting
yes,
to get this.
yes.
And what are we talking about, Tom?
That is well. It's kind of like creepy when you think about it now. You have to see, but that's a tickle me Elmo. And
Yes.
this thing again was crazy. So it was a doll, and again, they didn't really realize when I say they, the manufacturers, it was going to take off. Elmo was around a long time before this, but this one, you pushed a button, and it kind of like laughed and stuff like that, and it would laugh more, and you tickled it, and it actually hit shelves in July of 1996. It didn't sell well at first, but what kind of took it off is Rosie O'Donnell used to have a TV show, and she featured it on her show in like late October, and then it just skyrocketed from there. So the toy was around before, and they kind of stopped making it. It's kind of like, oh, we had this production run, it didn't do well. It's like it's going to be like a summer toy. It's Sesame Street. It made money, but I didn't think of anything like nuts, right? But then
Yep.
after it was on her show, it took off, and people wanted it. It's just like late October, early November. The reruns, kids see it. It becomes this huge sensation, and people were trampling each other to get one. They were selling out in minutes. People were like fighting to get one. Like we said, they were calling places, driving hours in one
Yeah.
direction for a hopes of maybe you can get one. I remember seeing like on the news, people would be like waiting outside for like 6 hours. Then the store's like, we only have four, and there's like the line is like hundreds of people deep. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
It's
You
nuts.
know. But you've seen this price gout. The price. This is really when you started seeing. You saw it with Couch Patch Kids too, I'm sure. But you definitely saw it with Tickle Me Elmo a bit more. But like the price gouging, right? Like you were talking about beating
Well, the
some guy
next
in a
and
back
then yeah,
alley and stuff like
yeah.
that. Because
The next two
you
things,
really
same
started
thing.
seeing that with Tickle Me Elmo. Well, a lot of the next couple ones, yeah.
Yeah, like talk about price gouging. So the next two in the 90s that became huge, and actually I remember having them. One was the Tamagotchi, right, in 97, and the other one was Furby, which is
The
also
Furby, I
made.
remember. Yeah, that
Furby,
was basically
my son has a Furby still. Like now, like it's funny. We went like to like a
yeah, they
antique
have them out.
used toy store, and he saw and he's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Ah, dude, it's this
Oh,
Furby
that'd be
thing."
tough.
So he's like, "What is it?" I'm like, "It's this Furby thing." He's like, "What is it?" I'm like, "I don't know." So then he touched it, he picked it up, and the thing woke up. Well, now the eyes are digital. So like back in the day, they
Oh,
were
okay.
still like. So now the thing like wakes up and it starts talking, like purring and stuff. And my son's like, "What the heck is this?" I'm like, "Yo, it's a Furby." So
No,
can
I
I have
remember.
it? I'm like,
What
"You
I
can
remember
have
about
it."
the Furbies is that I used to. That's when I started working. Like I got my first job. I was working at like I think a Kmart, and we would get Furby. People would come in all the time. Yo, you have Furbies. I need a Furby. I need a Furby. And the Furbies would come in. I remember unloading the trucks, and we would have to call the manager, like, yeah, we got like 2 boxes of Furbies. Maybe it was like 6 in a box, right? And we had to escort them. A cop came, like the security guard came in, and we had to walk the Furbies up to the manager's office, put them in the safe, and close and lock the safe.
Oh
And
my
only the
god.
manager knew it. We're like, what's going on? Is people would come in like, I know you got Furbies. I'm like, I don't know how we knew you got Furbies. But I think at first we were telling people, yeah, we got like 2 boxes. And the manager's like, do not tell anybody that we have Furbies, because they were already like promised, like I guess friends, family, and stuff like that. And then the people would come and like, and then the manager would come down at the end of the night and like buy the Furbies himself and stuff like that.
He
And then I
probably like
guess,
sold them out of the
oh,
back
he's
of his
probably selling,
car.
because they said they were hiding them in. They pushed us the price. It was like a $20 toy. They were selling for more than $100 at
Yeah,
Christmas time.
$100.
Everyone
Christmas
want
time
everyone
'98.
wanted Furby. But that was also what happened, was that when I remember that, they kind of like the media kind of made this into like a crazy image, Kamagachi. It's like, oh, what's going to be the next Tickle Me Elmo? That's always what it is now. What's going to be the big toy craze? So they kind of made the Furby into that, and every kid wanted a Furby. I remember I did. I remember it was just like, okay, crazy, but like people went crazy for them. And like I remember being at the store where people were trampling, trying to get them. I'm like, we don't even have them. I
Oh
remember
man.
the other guy that used to sometimes say like, "Oh my god, we got Furbies in," just to like see people's reaction, and then people were
Oh
like
man.
cursing them off and stuff like that, because they were just like, they just wanted Furbies.
That is
Like
nuts.
it was crazy.
Yeah, that seems a little excessive. The Tamagotchi, which came out within the same time, I remember, it's like a keychain
That
where
was more of
basically
a
it
keychain,
starts off
yeah.
with an egg. It's an egg, and then it becomes like this little animal, and you have to feed it once in a while, and if not, it dies. It often died, but it was like a big deal. Um, the biggest toy, actually, it became the toy of the year in the United States in 2000 was the Razor scooter, and
Yeah, I remember
apparently
those.
like 7 million of them were sold in the year 2000. Like that was the go-to gift, was the Razor scooter, and they're still popular today. But I assume now everything's electric. The kids don't want to
Yeah,
have to use
the
a real
power one.
scooter anymore, right?
We still see those. I remember seeing in college, like college campuses, right? People with like, the
Yep,
scooters and stuff that we were right around in college at that time,
yep.
give or take. And I remember seeing people like, I mean, like, am I just going to throw a stick out and watch you fall? Like that's what I wanted to do. I don't know. I guess I was being like a mean kid at that point. I was like, why are you racing around like the campus on a
Campus.
scooter? And I guess it makes sense. I get it. You got to get to class, whatever, and whatever. I was just like, I was always tempted to just like throw a rock or like a stick in front of them and just like watch them like fall. I never
And
did it,
I never did.
but I
That's
was
good.
tempted.
You know what gets me? Like when the more into 2000s I go with toy crazes and what's popular for kids, the more you start to see the influence that technology really
Yeah,
has
yeah.
on getting into what it means to be a kid. It's kind of sad. I mean, in 2004 was the Robo Sapien. I remember this thing. We actually had one of those from the Furby craze was like your first robot. But in 2004, you had this like robot that could pick things up and
It
he
was like
could
you
move
could
around. He
train
could
almost.
walk.
Yeah,
Yeah, he could walk, he could pick things up, he could turn, he could talk, and it became this like super must-have toy for Christmas in 2004. And then shortly thereafter, if you start looking at the technology, 2005, the one thing you wanted was the
Xbox. Yeah,
Xbox 360.
Xbox.
People waited literally outside all night just to get it. And if right after 2006, same thing with PlayStation 3. I remember I got a
Yeah.
PlayStation 3 because I went with our mutual friend Oliver. I went to help him get a TV, and he was getting a Sony TV. This is 2006, around Christmas time, and he gets this Sony TV, and the manager comes out and he's like, "Well, because you spent this much money on the Sony product, we actually have two PlayStation 3s if you're interested in buying it." And Oliver was like, "No, I don't want that. Like, why would I want that?" And I'm like, "Wait, hold on. I'm with him. I drove him here. Can I buy it?" The manager was like, "Well, as long as he pays for it, and then you could pay him back." I'm like, "Oliver, we're buying PlayStation 3." And it was like $500, $600. It was a lot of money in 2006. I remember calling at the time. This is like I just got married like a month before, so I called my new wife and I'm like, "Can I get a PlayStation 3?" She's like, "No, why?" I'm like, "Please, it's all I want this Christmas."
I think you remember. I think I remember you calling me too.
I probably did. I'm like, "Dude, I should get it, right? Like, divorce is worth it." Anyway, I got the PlayStation 3, and you know what? I still have my PlayStation 3. It still works. It's still connected in a basement, so all is well.
Oh, as well.
Um,
Then you had some other ones too, like we said, like the fancy technology ones. But then you had the big one was a couple years later, right? You had the Wii. So
mhm.
again, you're talking about this, and that was so big, people died to get the Wii. Remember that whole
Oh yeah,
contest when she held in the woman who refused to go to the bathroom for the longest
yep.
time? They're like holding your Wii for a Wii, and she actually died. So they actually sold 13.4 million units All right.
Did you see that? It was sold out around
Every
holidays
year.
every
Yeah.
year between 2006 to 2008.
Based
So
in
for 3 years
2008, you could
straight.
not, you couldn't get one. Yeah.
Yep.
So, which was just, again, why not? Like, it was just, and it's just all these electronics from this point, like Nooks, right? iPhones, iPads.
And that's what they
Elmo,
mostly are. Yeah.
Elmo actually comes back, right? He makes a big one in 2011. All right. They repackaged Elmo and made Let's Rock Elmo. It's kind of like a Teddy Ruxpin version, right? He played the tambourine. He sung a little bit, right?
Well, then you got
He's
the Big
actually,
Hugs Elmo. That was another one,
yeah,
2013.
yeah. So again, it's geared towards little kids, but it still becomes big.
And towards we're getting closer to today, but you had like 2016 Hatchimals. That was like a big deal. I remember.
Well, the
It
big
was
one
like,
that I think, yeah,
go.
Hatchimals were a big deal, but I think the big one that like kind of again, it was kind of like they rehashed what happened with Star Wars was the Frozen stuff because they didn't again Disney didn't think Frozen was going to be like this big thing, but it was a became like the most popular movie, and they just didn't have enough of the toys or really Frozen merchandise ready to go outside of Disney World. And all these stories that people basically like went to Disneyland or Disney World, bought the Frozen stuff there, and then just sold it back another when they got back to where their home state. And that's what they would do because you just couldn't get it anywhere else. There just wasn't enough of the actual Elsa or Anna dolls and stuff like that actually made yet because they just didn't think it was going to be as big as it was. So you didn't have enough of it.
I don't know. What's the biggest toy this year? Did you Google it? I'm kind of curious. What's the biggest?
Baby Yoda was big last year. So, look at this one. So I saw the one that is the biggest this year, or one of the biggest ones, is actually it's the Stranger Things version of the night of Bright Light, Light Bright. Remember Light Bright?
Yeah, it was like the thing you put together and
You
like.
put it together and like you put the little like light bulbs in, you get like a scene and stuff. I remember mine. I had one, and I remember it caught on fire. It burst into flames. I remember running downstairs and like,
Uh,
Mom, my light bright's on, my thing's on fire, and she was saying, No, it's not, no, it's not. And she came upstairs to my room, and it was like melting. She's like, Why didn't you tell me? I'm like, I told you. I'm just, it's me. I was like 6. I was just sitting there like I didn't care. I was like, This is cool. I got a fire in my room, but it just like melted, and like exploded. But anyway,
okay. All
so
right.
that they're saying that's going to be. I don't know if that is the biggest toy. I doubt it. But that's what it's saying as one of the big toys this year that they're expecting. But again,
I
it's a
just feel
Stranger
like
it's a Stranger Things version. But I think now it's probably all electronics. Like I'm sure it's a
yeah, it's
video
gonna be like
game.
an iPad or something. Something
I don't
like
think
that.
they really know until after the fact. But with how things work now with Amazon and online, you can probably get any toy you really want. Unless it's like a supply chain issue, which is a whole other story.
Yeah.
But again, some of these early ones we talked about, the Tickle Me Elmo, the Beanie Babies, the Furbies, obviously the Elsa doll, Teddy Ruxpin. These cause Wii's, Cabbage Patch dolls. These cause actual like major
They
mayhem.
cause harm, man. People
Like
like
yeah,
got
like
hurt.
people got hurt, people died, all like to make their kids happy. So I guess, but they kind of forgot the holiday season, like the I
Yeah,
guess the full idea. And again, that's kind of like a pie in the sky type of thinking there, I'm sure. But it's
that's
just one of those things that I'm so happy as a parent I haven't experienced that. Like whatever toy they wanted the most, we were able to get
to
it for them.
find.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I couldn't imagine that feeling if you had a daughter that wanted a Cabbage Patch doll in '84 and you
Yeah.
couldn't get one. What do you do? Like
Oh man, you
sorry.
can't.
Like
Sorry,
why didn't
Santa
Santa
doesn't
why
like
didn't
you.
yeah why didn't Santa get it for me? Well, even Santa says no. Like like I don't know. Now you remember that
uh,
one time you didn't listen? That's why you didn't get the Cabbage Patch doll.
that is funny. Yeah, right. Let's finish up with this one. What do you want for Christmas this year, Tom?
Me, I'm
Don't give me.
good.
Don't tell me world peace. Let's be honest. Like if.
No, no, no. Yeah, what do I want for Christmas?
Yeah, what do you want
It
for
has to be
Christmas?
something. It has to be something tangible.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. It's got to be something real. Unless you want like a puppy. I mean, that's real too, obviously. But
No, I don't want a puppy. That's no.
too much
Um,
responsibility.
I don't. I don't. I always say I don't really need anything. Like
I
I'm
say the
kind of
same
good. If
thing.
if you want to give me like $1 million, I wouldn't mind that. Well, I wouldn't mind having a 100,000 downloads for our podcast. How's that for a Christmas
That's good. That's good. That's not bad. That's
for
a
a
good one.
Christmas wish?
We said tangible, Tom.
That's how
No,
tangible. Well,
no, it's pretty
tangible.
tangible. I think we can do this. No, dude, I just want socks. Like I don't know what it is. Like when I got old, and like my kids as a joke, would always buy me socks for Christmas, and they still do. And like I look forward to that now. Like I'm like curious what kind of socks I'm gonna get this year. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
sad, right? When like I remember wanting GI Joes and video games. Like now I'm just like I could get all that stuff myself if I want. I just want like a nice fuzzy pair of socks. Like, I don't want much.
The fuzzy socks. I don't know about the fuzzy
Oh,
socks. Or
fuzzy
what are
socks
those?
are the best around the house. Oh man, that's
Or
what's up.
whatever works for you, Pete.
Whatever works. Maybe like a new pencil set, and I like to draw a lot, so maybe like a pencil
There
set.
you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Isn't it crazy
That
how the
works.
older we get, the less we want? It's kind of crazy. And when
Well,
you're a
because
kid, you're just like, I want everything.
yeah, when I was a kid, I was more of like I had that one thing. As long as if I got that for Christmas, I was like, I'm good. They'd be like, well, you didn't open everything else. I'm like, I'm good. I
I'm
got
good now.
I got Optimus Prime. I got whatever. I got Batman. I'm all right.
That is so funny.
So
Anyway,
good times. So good memories. Just a little trip back on memory lanes a little bit. Like I said, I remember some of these things even getting them when I was younger than those years when I worked retail when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. And I remember people getting like knocked off like ladders when they were hanging stuff up. Like people going after
man,
Furbies that tickle me up with all those things. It was a wild time, like being working in retail during the '90s. That was a wild time.
those were the days. Well, anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in once more to listen to us, talk about toys. That was a fun one.
It's
Um,
good.
that's good. So, anyway, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. We're going to take a nice little holiday break next week, so you will hear from us the week after. Yeah, we'll see you guys then. So, thank you so much for tuning in. If you need to find us, you can find us at www.historyteacherstalkingpodcast.com. We're always there to answer any of your questions or, listen to any comments you might have. So, happy holidays, everyone, and we'll see you guys again in about 2 weeks.
Stay safe, everybody.
I hope everyone enjoyed our podcast, and if you would like to email us, you can do so at historyteacherspodcast@gmail.com.